Not
Anyone?
me.
Anyone who has heard of CSS, or if you've ever used it before, or if you know what CSS stands for? Anyone? I saw some people adding CSS on the first assignment, but right now everyone's quiet. But anyway, CSS is a styling language. It's used to style our elements. So wherever you see on the browser that's displayed the different colors, the different alignment for different elements, that's the work of CSS. Like, it's CSS that powers that. Let me project my screen. Let me share my screen. Yeah, I hope everyone can see my screen. So they're telling us CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet. And it tells the browser how to display text and other content that you write in HTML. So like I said, it's just a language that's used to design or style your different HTML elements. So they're telling us note CSS is is case sensitive. So be careful with capitalization. Yes, when you're putting in these different styles, the different colors, the different font sizes, like the different properties, you have to be careful when with the casing. When you like write a capital letter, when it's meant to be small, it won't work the way you expect it. It will just give you some weird results. So take note of that casing. So CSS has been adopted by all major browsers and allows you to control color, fonts, positioning, spacing, sizing, decoration, transitions, among others. Like there's so many things you can control using CSS. And you're going to look at a few of them today. I'm going to give you an example on how to style, like put in different colors for different elements, and also change the font size and font family. But there are different ways of styling using CSS. We have three major ways. We have inline styling, we have internal styling, and external styling. But today we're going to look at inline and internal. Then later on we shall have a look at external styling, and we're going to like see the advantages of one over the other. So they're telling us there are three main ways to apply CSS styling. You can apply inline styles directly to your HTML elements with a style attribute. That's why actually we looked at attributes in the first place, because you're going to need them when it comes to CSS. Then alternatively, you can place CSS rules with style tags within style tags in an HTML document, and they're always placed in the head section of your document. So when you're writing the HTML structure, the head must be there because that's where you're going to put your internal CSS, if at all it's the one you're using. Then the other method is the external CSS. They're telling us finally you can write CSS rules in an external style sheet, then reference that file in an HTML document. Still, the reference or the link to the external CSS file will always be placed in the head section of your document. And putting a disclaimer here, even though the first two options have their cases, most developers prefer external style sheets because they keep the styles separate from the HTML elements. This improves readability and reusability of your code. Yes, this is very, very true, because you're going to find it's tiresome. Like if I told you have to change 100 lines, like changing a color of a heading, or 100 paragraphs. If I told you using internal CSS, it will be like you have to go on every line and change that color and then maybe the color value. But if I told you using something like internal CSS or external styling, you just change it in one position. Like if you go to one place and say, maybe I want all my paragraphs to have this specific color. Unlike doing it on each line in your HTML, because internal CSS is applied directly in the HTML tag. So they're telling us the idea behind CSS is that you can use a selector to target an HTML element in the DOM or the document object model. So DOM stands for document object model, and they then apply a variety of attributes to that element to change the way it's displayed on the page. So the DOM, they're referring to your web browser or the new tab, or where you open your HTML files. Where we open our web pages in the browser. So CSS is the one responsible for the way these elements display when maybe you open your HTML file in a browser tab that looks like this. So CSS is the language behind the appearance of your web page. Then down here, they're showing us the CSS syntax and the rules you have to follow when you're writing CSS. So they're telling us that CSS rule set consists of a selector and a declaration block. So you're going to have something like this. This is your selector. Maybe perhaps you have a H1. Then you're declaring these styles to apply on the H1 or whatever element you've selected. If it's a paragraph, that means these particular styles will apply on a paragraph. If it's a form, they'll apply to the form. If it's a link or maybe a list, they will apply on what element you've selected. Then the declaration, simply like you're declaring a value. So for this case, they're declaring a color of blue to apply to our H1, then a font size of 12 pixels. So the units for in CSS, majorly we use pixels. We can also use percentages, but pixels are the most common. So under the declaration, we have the property. So this is the property. The term color here is our property, and then the value is the actual color. The blue is the value, then the color is the property. So here is for font size. This is the property, and the value is the actual the actual pixels. The 12 pixels is the value. And note, when you're having a property that has more than one word, you separate it using the hyphen. So for this case, font size has 2 words, so we have to separate it using the hyphen symbol, this dash. Here, they're basically explaining what this does, just like I've been doing. The selector points to the HTML document, the HTML element you want to style. This time, the selector will meaning the H1. Then the declaration block contains one or more declarations separated by semicolons. Yes. So actually, to separate, let me emphasize this because it's very, very important when it comes to CSS. Otherwise, you run into errors. When you're separating the value and the property, you use full colons. And then when you're applying more than one declaration or more than one block, You have to separate the different blocks using semicolons. So every time you put you declare a style on a particular element, you have to end it with semicolons, but not make sure you always have full colons to separate the property and the value. Just like they said here, each declaration includes a CSS property name and a value separated by a colon, these full colons. Then multiple CSS declarations are separated with semicolons, and declaration blocks are surrounded by curly braces. The curly braces you're seeing, this one and this one. So it's just the way you have the opening and closing tags. Make sure when you're this or after selecting, the first thing you do is open the curly braces and close them off. Then inside you can apply and declare whatever styles you want for your particular HTML element to have. So they're showing us an example down here for inline styling, and we're going to have something that looks like this. So when you have your H1, remember you first write HTML. So no web page appear like exists without HTML. So HTML is like the skeleton, the core foundation. So CSS sits on top of HTML. So you can't have CSS without HTML. You must apply CSS on a particular element. So we're going to have our H1 that's saying us blue heading, and actually, if I were to open this in the browser, we shall have a heading just like I'm going to show you. Actually, let's first try this out. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new document. I'm going to create a new one for CSS. So I'll create a folder, like a project folder on my desktop. I'm going to create a new folder called CSS. Then I'm going to open this folder with my text editor, which is Visual Studio Code. So it's the same procedure, just the way you create HTML files. So I'm going to first of all create a HTML file and then put in some content or some elements. Then after, I'm going to apply CSS. So I'll go ahead and create a file. I'm going to call it index.html. Because actually this helped us last time if at all you're deploying your work to GitHub pages. So it always take this to be like your landing page. If at all you name your file as index.html. I'll put in the structure. Hopefully now everyone knows how to write the HTML structure. So we can now use the shortcut. So I'll have a heading introduction to CSS, the basic CSS. I'll put in, let me call the H1, H2. Okay, let me go with H1. I'll give it the same introduction to CSS. So after having your HTML that looks like this, I'm going to go ahead and open it in the browser, and we see how it's appearing right now. Make sure whatever you do, you save. So after saving, don't mind it in autosave, but make sure if at all you didn't set autosave, you always hold Ctrl S and save your file. Otherwise, your changes won't appear in the browser or in the DOM. Yes, I'll have something that looks like this. Let me just zoom in a bit. So plain HTML looks like this. But I want to have a heading that has a color of which color? Which color should I use?
Green.
Green, eh? Okay. So let's make our heading green. Remember in the document to apply internal CSS, you need to have something like this. You need to have the style attribute. So here. So you need to have these two things, and they are always placed in the opening tag. Don't put your style in the closing tag, it won't work. So we're going to have our style attribute and give it a value of this color. And then this is the property and this is the value. So I'll go ahead. Actually, it doesn't matter if I told you place your styles here or after the element name, but so long as they're in the opening tag. So I'll go ahead and put style, put equal signs. Then everything should be placed in quotes. Doesn't matter if I told you using single or double quotes, but I prefer to use double quotes. So I'll put color and give it a value, like separate my property and value with full colons. So I'll give it a value of green. And then to make sure, like to show the end of my style, I'll just put the semicolons, just like show my style ends here. So after you have to save, remember saving is very, very key. Then after I'll just come back to my browser and refresh. So I'll just come here and refresh. Yay, we have our heading turning to green. So that's how they apply colors, like in like web pages or websites. That's how colors are put. So I'll go ahead and I can have as many headings as possible. Let me also put a paragraph. I'll just put in lorem. I can always use this as placeholder text. Lorem, then tab. It always generates for you some random text. So when I open, remember internal inline CSS, it applies to that particular element. Because we didn't apply any CSS to our paragraph, it will just look like plain text. When I refresh in my browser, it will just be like a normal paragraph without any styles in. But let's say I also want to change the color. I'll just follow the same procedure, put in the style attributes, then do color, give it a value of maybe blue. Let's say I want blue. Then always remember to terminate or end your styles with semicolons. When I save and come back refresh, I'll have my blue. Let's say I want to change, what should we change? The background of my body. Any guesses on where how I can change the background? I want my page to have a different color. Any guesses?
Mm. You go to the body bit and put the style there.
Yes. How which property? Which property do you think we should use?
I think we should use color.
Color.
Mm.
Color. Color. Let's try. Okay. I will put in the style. Then color, we'll change the background. Which color should I put?
No,
Let's
I
try.
think background.
Okay,
Background. Put background.
background? Okay. Which color? Which value?
Uh, gray.
Gray. Okay, I'll just put in gray, and I'll save my file and see if it works.
Wait, didn't terminate.
Oh, thank you. Always terminate, like to show the style ends there. Well, actually, it's very, very important because I'm going to show you when it comes to adding more than one style. If at all you don't terminate, you always run into errors. After saving, yes, it works. Thank you, pleasure.
You're welcome.
What else should we do? Do you guys have questions? Because that's basically what you do. Maybe the other thing I can show you is how to apply more than one, declare like more than one style. Let's say I want my heading to be in the center and I want it to have a color of green, using inline CSS. How do we do that? Any guesses? Okay, what you can do is come here, put space, and then declare a different style, which is text align. This is my property of text align. Then Visual Studio Code is always giving me like auto completing. So you select a value of center and always terminate. After save and see if at all our heading goes. Let's see if our heading goes to the center. Yes, and it works. So the background is competing with our text color. So let me change this to be white. Let me change it to white. So after save, already save. Yeah. And we have our heading in the color of white, and it's in the center. So that's how you declare more than one style on one element. But this is tiresome. What if you add another H1? Let's first do another one, H1, and we'll give it, what text should I put? Online session. So not these are all H1s, but let's see, let me just show you what will happen when I refresh. You see what we get? So it's also an H1, but the styles only apply to the other one. So if I told you also want this one to be in the center and you also want it to be to have a color of white, you have to like do the same thing. You have to come back here, type again style, put the color of white or any other color of your choice. Then also like do the text align. Actually, when I just put color and I don't align it to the center, it always just say that like to be left aligned by default. But this is a bit tiresome. I'm even tired. So what we can do, like to in order to style them at once, we always opt for internal styling instead. Why? Because there we can always reuse our code. We don't have to like repeat ourselves. So imagine you had like 1,000 or even 100. Those are too much paragraphs. If I told you have to like align them to the center and make them have a color of white. That will be too much work and there will be too much repetition. And when it comes to programming and web development, they already said dry. Do not repeat yourself. So if at all there is a way of doing something once and you just maybe inherit, that's the best way. So always opt for reusing your code. So internal styling, we're going to have it just like they said in the document. Let me show you the document. So here, up here, they talk about internal styling. Yes. Instead of using inline, you can alternatively place the CSS rules within style tags in an HTML document. And they're always placed in the head section. So what we're going to do is come here. So it also doesn't matter if at all you put your styles here, so long as they are in between the opening and closing head tag. So what they're telling us to do is put our style tags like this. So we have our opening and closing style tag. So right now I'm going to just remove all the styles. One thing I forgot to tell is about forgetting to terminate. This is what will happen when you fail to terminate. Um, Let me save and you see what happens in the browser. You see? Now it's no longer like understanding what you're trying to do. They're even highlighting the errors. So a slight mistake like this can make you like you can look for this error for 3 days without knowing what really happened to my H1. Why isn't it like applying the styles? So terminating is very very important. If I told it you want to apply more than one style to your element. So when I rectify my work and go back again, it will just work out after saving. It will go back. So terminating is very very important. So I showed you that because I was removing the styles. I want to like now I want us to try out the internal styling. So I'll just remove this inline because it's tiresome. It's really tiresome. I also remove this. Yeah, and now right now when I save and open my work, we shall have plain HTML without any CSS. So it will go back to normal. So now we want to use internal styling to style our document. We want like to see how we can reuse these styles. So in order to do that, we're going to follow these simple rules. So when it comes to internal styling, you have to actually internal styling is the same as external, though the only difference is that this one is within the same document. Because actually I'm going to task you guys to find out the advantages of using external CSS over internal CSS and the advantages of using internal CSS over inline CSS. I don't know if you're getting it, but I'm going to actually update this document and add that because it's really very, very important to understand that before even dive into the styling part. So internal styling is the same as external. The only difference is the other one is put in a separate document, as we shall see maybe tomorrow or Wednesday. But we're going to have our H1 like this will be like our selector, then declare the different styles we want for our H1 to have. So what I'm going to do is go back. It will look like this. Let me show you down. So let's say we have a plain heading that looks like that. So CSS will just look like this. So you're going to have our selector. This is the selector. Then you put all the declarations in between the curly braces. Here they forgot to put that the semicolons, but they're very, very important. I'm going to include them. So what you do is come select after adding the tags. So you come select your H1, put the opening curly bracket, and also put the second one. Then you put declare the color you want or any other style. I'll say color. Make sure you're using full colons. Then I'll take green. Or let me say red. Then always terminate. Because when you terminate, all the styles that come after won't they won't be recognized if at all you fail to end your declaration, like ends there. But note actually the advantage of this is that it's going to apply to all whatever H1 it finds in the document down. So let's save and see what happens. When I refresh, you see, now I write code once and it applies to both. So when I want maybe to align them in the center, I'll just do text align. Text align. Make sure I put in the right spellings. Put my colons and just to center. Terminate. See, they'll all go to the center at once. After saving and coming to my browser and refreshing. So actually this will apply to whatever H1s I have in my document. So I can even try adding another H1 that says, hey, or maybe welcome to CSS. So right now I can just edit my document and it will be styled automatically. So when I come back, yeah. So by default, I have my H1 in the center and you have a color value of red. Any questions? Any questions? Any questions so far? Because I want to push this work to GitHub and we call it a day. Please ask. Because actually there are so many, I'm going to send you like the different styles you can apply to the different elements, but there are so many, but this is just like an introduction and we shall go into the details later on to do more than putting colors because there are more styles you can apply to have a beautiful document or a beautiful web page. Questions, please. Okay, if there are no questions, let me show you how to deploy this work on GitHub pages because it's very, very important. Like whatever we do, we have to deploy and push our work to GitHub. So this should be like part of our daily life. So I'll start by opening the terminal. Actually, this will even help people who have just joined us today. So I'll just go to view and then select terminal, or you can use this shortcut control plus that symbol. So I'll open my terminal and remember that when you're doing Git, the first step or the first command is git init. So I'll initialize a repository. Yes, the moment you do git init, this work will be like tracked by GitHub. And you always see the colors change if at all you're using Visual Studio Code. Then the other step is to do maybe Git status. So they will show me this file is untracked, so I need to add it to the staging area. So the third command is git add. I can either do index.html or I can do git full stop. So inside it, I will add do git add again to check. Yeah, all your added files always appear in green, and the files which are not tracked always appear in red. So after adding, you do git commit and then put a message. This message is just for your future self to like understand what we're trying to do. So this time round, I'm trying to add CSS, or maybe styling my H1. I can just put styling H1 to be like a bit more specific. Styling heading 1, something like that. It can be any message to help you and people you're working with know what you're trying to do at that particular stage. So after committing my files, these ones are saved and everything will just go back to normal. I will see my files. So the moment you try editing, or maybe even when you try to change the color like this, you're going to see that this file is modified because what you pushed to GitHub in the first place, you committed a file that had a heading of with a color value of red, then now you're changing to green. So Git will always track whatever changes to make you make to your files. I'll just Ctrl Z because I didn't intend to like change the color. I just wanted to show you that whatever you're doing, Git tracks it. So when everything is back, you always see your files going back to normal. It's not. What's happening? Okay, let me just Control Y. Yes. So my file is back to normal again. So the other command is git push. When you want to see how many like commits you made, you can always do git log. It always lists for you, and then what time you committed. So they're telling me today is a Monday, December 14th, and this is the time I made a commit. Actually, this is the time that will always be recorded to maybe to GitHub. That's the time they will put on GitHub. The time you made a commit. Even if I push this work tomorrow to GitHub, because maybe I don't have internet right now and I can only access internet tomorrow, this time will be recorded that this is the time I made a commit. So I'll do git push. So they ask me, you're trying to push, but actually we don't know where you're trying to push. It doesn't have a push destination. So this is the time for you to go to github.com, log in and create a GitHub repository. So what I'll do is go to my GitHub. I'm already logged in. So what I can do is just tap on this new to create a new repository. Just call this CSS intro. So if I told you create a repository with two different names, it will always be separated with the hyphen. If I told you want to make it public, everyone can see it. If I told you it's only you and the people you're collaborating with that want to see this project, you always select the private. We looked at how to create radio buttons last time. So this is how they are created. But me, I want everyone to see my work. So I'll come initialize the README. We shall look at the git ignore later on. So I'll just select create a repository. So after creating a repository, to just initialize for me a README like this, I can edit later on. Later on, we shall see how to edit the README file because it's also helpful when it comes to documenting your work and letting other developers or other people you're working with how to get this project run on their respective machines. So I'll just copy this link because this is the one that's going to help us configure our destination, like our push destination. So I'll just type this command the way it is, but note, instead of name, I'm going to replace name with the word origin and then URL with the actual link. So I'll type git remote add. Make sure I don't make spelling mistakes here. Any mistake can just make you run into errors. Then I'll paste. I can right click and paste, or you can simply hold Ctrl Shift and V to paste. So you should have something that looks like this. Then after you press enter, when everything is fine, you won't see any error messages. If at all you have any spelling mistakes or it can't find that repository, you always run into different errors, but they always instruct you on what to do next. Just like they notified me, you're trying to push, but you don't have a push destination. So make sure you always try reading out what the terminal prints out for you. But since now we know where the work is going, I'll just do git push. And it will always tell me to set the branch where I want my work to go. So it will ask me to like set a branch. If I told you want to switch to a different branch, this is the time for you to create a branch. So what I can do is just copy this whole command. I'll just retype it again, but just type it the way it is. Sorry about the noise. So I'll just type the command again. Oh, it's telling me there is an error. I can't access github.com. So this could be like a network issue. So it's about my internet. So you need to like have internet before you push your work. Let me connect again. So when you see an error that looks like this, fatal unable to access, this it could be the network issue. So you need to like check and see if at all your internet is fine. So after rectifying my internet, you see now it works. I just use the same command. In order to go back to the previous command, you can always use the up arrows. So I'll just type in my GitHub username. If at all you don't remember your GitHub username, you can always use your email address, the one you used to create the GitHub account. So I'll just put in my email. No. My GitHub username. If at all I'm to use my email, I can just do this. This is my email I used. If you have more than one email, make sure you use the one you used to create the GitHub account. Then after it will just prompt you for the password. Make sure you put in the right password. Though you won't see the password in the screen, but make sure you type in the right now, because right now I'm typing in the password. Make sure your password is right. So after pushing my work to GitHub, they'll show me this message. To check if at all the work is there, all you have to do is go back to github.com and refresh. Actually, even before you refresh, they always notify you. Master had recent pushes less than a minute ago. Yes, because we've just pushed our work. So if I'm to refresh, I'm expecting to see a file called index on my master branch. Why? Because that's the branch where I pushed the work. If I told you pushed on a different branch, make sure you always come to the drop down and select that particular branch. So you see, I've just pushed my work 1 minute ago, but that's showing me the commit was made 8 minutes ago. Yes, because that's the time when we did the git commit. And this is the message that comes by. So if anyone's reading my work, they will know this particular commit, I was trying to style my heading 1, my H1. So if I told you a developer, you can understand this code, but clients, we don't understand this. Like they'll ask you, what's that? What the hell is that? So what you do is help them and host this project on GitHub pages. In order to do that, because for them they want to see like a nice looking web page, they won't understand this code or even what it does. So what you do to host your project on GitHub pages, you come to settings after pushing your work, like after doing everything, pushing your work and seeing everything is there. So you come to settings on your menu on github.com. So you select the settings. After selecting settings, you always it take you to this screen where you can change the settings of your repository and change like almost everything. So what you do is scroll down to GitHub pages. You just scroll up to here where you see GitHub pages. So GitHub pages is designed to host your personal, organization, or project pages from a GitHub repository. So all I have to do is to see my pages, I have to select the branch where I deployed my which has my code. So I'll just select my master branch and then select save. After changing, make sure you already save the changes. If you don't save, you won't see what the GitHub pages won't be deployed. So make sure when you change the settings, you have to save. So after saving, I'll just scroll back. They will show me a link where to find my website. Yes. So they'll give me like they'll show me your site is ready to be published and this at this link. When I open it in a new tab, or I can just even simply click on it, but I'll just open it in a new tab. Yay! And we have our work. So actually, you can also access this work, this particular project. You can even try it on your phone. When you visit https:// Justin Baum, this is your GitHub username. So instead of having just my GitHub username, you have your own, which is all you deploy in your project. Then .github.io, then the project folder, or the GitHub repository name, which is CSS intro. Then why it's showing this is because I named my folder index.html, my file index.html. So by default, your like when you're hosting your project, they always look for that main file. So I always encourage you to name it index.html. If I told you know that's your site or the page you want someone to see the first time they visit your site, always name it index.html, because even GitHub understands wherever file is named index.html, that's like my landing page. So that's why we don't have to put anything here. But when I visit this link and then select CSS intro, you see my work. So after actually, if at all you want to change anything, this is very, very important also. Let's say I forgot to like change my background. So I wanted that to have a background that looks, so let me just add, actually I don't have to use inline CSS again. So all I have to do to apply another style, I'll just select my body. I use that Are you seeing my screen? So I was trying to show you when you edit your document. Remember, this is online, the one which is hosted on GitHub pages, and then we have this one which is in like on my local computer on my laptop. Eh? So when I refresh, this one will change my background to be blue. Sorry guys, let me share my screen again. Eh? So I was still showing you like when you want to change the background color of our body. Remember the last time, like we're seeing how we can host it on GitHub pages, and then we saw our project was deployed successfully. So I'll just put in a color value of blue. After I'll save my file, then I open in a browser. When I refresh, we shall have something that looks like this. Eh? So, but remember, this is only applying to your offline. Like it only applies to your laptop. Eh? People on GitHub won't see this work. Why? Because you haven't pushed the work. So the moment you make changes locally, you have to like, commit again, do git add, commit, and push that work. That's the only way they will be able to see this work on GitHub. But the moment you make your changes, it always show you this file was modified, but you haven't pushed it yet. Eh? So if at all you want your background to be blue, or even if I want your paragraph, I can also decide to make my paragraph white. I'll just put in a color of white. So when I save again, these styles will only apply on my while I'm offline. Eh? When I want to view them this side, when I come refresh here, nothing will change. Why? Because my repository only has the previous work I pushed. So if at all I want to have made any changes to my project, I have to come back, do git add. Like when I actually, let me just start with git status. I'll just do git add. Git add. I want to add everything. I'll just use a full stop. Press enter, then I'll do git commit. After adding, remember actually now we don't have to do git init again. Eh? I'll just do git commit, then put my message that says add style, add background color, and style the paragraph. That's my commit message. So after committing, I can try to do my git log to see how many commits I've made. So this time around, I have 2 commits. Then I'll just do git push. And this time around, it's just prompt for my GitHub username and password because it already knows where to push the work. So I'll just put in my GitHub username. May always interchange them. Sometimes I use my email, sometimes I use my GitHub username, but both work. So I'll put in my password, then send my work to GitHub. And then when I refresh, let me show you my page. Let me just go back here. So actually, when I just refresh here, forgive my network. I have my page in blue. That's it for today, unless you have any questions. So summary for today, make sure when you make any changes to your local project, make sure you push them to GitHub. If at all them to apply after hosting your project on GitHub pages. Otherwise, your changes will remain offline unless if you push them. So any questions so far? Questions, please. Questions in the Google Drive. If there are no questions, we call it a day.